All right, everyone. So this is going to conclude day one of the Wealthy Trustee workshop. So today we focused on the unincorporated business trust. And so we were able to go through all 50 pages of the indenture so that you guys can understand the contents of this business trust. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and open up the floor for Q&A so that I can answer any and all questions that you guys might have based off of the information that I provided you guys with today. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and raise your hand. And if you're not able to come off mute, then I will go into the chat. So please put your questions in the chat and I will be able to answer your questions. So the first hand that I see is Titan, and I will dive into the chat as well.
Okay, hello. Hi. Thank you
Hi,
so much. This has been so informational.
you're so welcome. Thank you for being here, Titan.
Okay. My question, you answered one of my questions. Okay, so can the trustee and the board member, I think I got kind of mixed up with that. So the trustees make up the board. Is that correct? Am I getting that?
Yes, you're correct. So the trustees make up the board, and then there are going to be other people on the board, which are officers, and the trustee is going to appoint those officers.
Okay, so the officers are like your secretary,
Yes,
um,
correct.
and okay, so you can have one, so I can be the one trustee, and that will make up my board.
Say that again.
Mm. I don't have to have two trustees. I can just be one trustee to make up the board.
You only need one trustee to make up the board, and then you can have, so the board, the minimum is at least two individuals. So it would be maybe like you and a secretary.
Okay, okay. And I also wanted to do like the holdings on the end of, so the name of the company, like mine is Novus Legacy Holdings.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to put? I mean, is the holdings, because that's what the company, it basically essentially is holding my businesses.
Yes, correct. Absolutely. Yes. So yes, you can use the word holding or holdings, and the whole purpose and intent of that particular trust is to hold and manage other entities. So those are other trusts and other businesses like LLCs and corporations. And so the holding company can hold those assets as well as hold assets that those businesses have. So, for example, if the business has like a commercial vehicle, right, like a
Mhm.
delivery truck or something like that, the business trust can hold the delivery truck, hold the title to the delivery truck for the LLC.
So when I go to to create a new business, I can put the holding, the trust name. When I go file it at the state, I can put the trust name instead of my name
As the owner,
on it
correct.
as the owner
Correct.
on there.
As the owner, yes.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
that's what I was wondering. Can I put
yeah,
that in that
yes,
only, and then
yeah,
that will
yes.
revert it back?
Yeah, that's the only way you
Absolutely.
can do it. So, do not put your name anywhere on the Secretary of State, nowhere. So it's just going to be the
Got
business
you.
trust. Yep, business trust, name and address, and all the information that belongs to the business trust.
And
Nothing,
so nothing else.
nothing personal.
And so I won't default to like a self-employment. I put the, because here I'm in Ohio, so they say if you only have one name on there, then you default to like a self, um if you had an LLC and it just has one name, you're looked at like a
A single member LLC.
yeah, a single member LLC.
Hmm.
And so can I just S corp it? That way
So,
I won't.
So, unfortunately, an S corp, if you are going to designate the LLC as an S corp, then it won't be able to be owned by a business trust because an S corp
Oh.
has an individual attached to it.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah,
see. That makes
that's the
sense.
way. Yeah, that's the way that that entity is designed. So it won't have to. It won't be able. It won't be able to work that way. So, the LLC has to be, traditional and not designated as S corp.
Gotcha. Totally get that part. I wasn't even thinking about that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And just one more thing. I just want to know the initial corpus, like, so the money to fund that is the dollar. That's how you exchange the dollar. The grantor gives the trustee the dollar, and that makes up. But now, if you get as you go and you get, is that the funding, the bank account?
hmm
Is that go for the initial, or is that just you're just funding the actual trust now? Once you get to the bank account part, you're just
Yeah,
funding the
so that's
trust.
right. That's not initial. So now you funding the bank account is outside of the initial corpus. So that is what we
Okay.
call principal. So that's principal. That's considered trust funds or working capital or working funds, and that is not the initial corpus. So the initial corpus, that's why we identify it in the indenture and in the schedule because it's totally separate from trust funds.
Okay, and where do you hold that at? Say, for example, it was
That's a
$100.
yeah, that's a wonderful question. So you as the trustee, it's discretionary. So the whole entire trust is discretionary. So it's up to your discretion how you want to dispose of the initial corpus. So meaning that you're going to accept it on behalf of the trust, and then you are going to then allocate it wherever you need to. So initially, it's going to be used for administrative purposes. So whatever that looks like, right? Whatever it looks like. So
Okay.
you can use it to buy paper for the trust, right? You can use it for whatever it is. So you'll dispose of it however you want. If you want to put it under the mattress in a safety deposit box, or if you want to add it inside of the bank account that you'll establish, you can do that.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. That's so helpful. Okay.
You're so
Thank you.
welcome. You're so welcome. All right, next we have Miss Betty, and I am going to jump into the chat as well.
Okay, my question is, like, say, if I use Wyoming for my business, um, do I have to get it notarized in Wyoming, or can I get it notarized in North Carolina?
That's a wonderful question, Miss Betty. So that's why we have the notary section is very different from where we place the domicile of the trust because you can notarize it anywhere in the US. But you're choosing the domicile, which is the
Oh,
state, the
oh,
address. So that's why the notary section specifies where you're getting it notarized. So that's why you have to put the state and the county where it's being notarized, which can be very different from the state where it's being established.
okay, okay, awesome. My next question, I was trying to reserve through iPoster
Yes,
my virtual address and phone number, and it asked me to complete a form. I think it was 1583.
yes,
So
ma'am.
I was trying to complete that form, but then I sort of like, but I, okay, so in the first part, do I put my name?
That's a really good question, Miss Betty. So, one is that that form is required, and the reason being is because of the U.S. Postal Service, right? So, this is a third-party company that they're now going to be acting on
Out
your
of my
behalf
internet.
to receive mail. And so, because the U.S. Postal Service is a government agency, they need to be able to prove your identity. And so
Okay.
that's why it's required for you to get that form notarized. And so you do have to provide your personal information, which is your name and identification. So they ask for like your passport.
Oh, okay. Okay, great, great. So I would have to send that through the mail.
No,
photocopy, or do I
no,
upload?
you'll do it online. So you'll click on the form and then it'll automatically go to an online notary and then
Okay.
they will go ahead and fill out the form for you.
Okay, but I will have to upload my passport.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That was my
You're
question.
so, you're so welcome. Thank you. All
Awesome, awesome, awesome lesson today.
right. Thank you, Miss Betty. I appreciate
I just
you.
love every time it gets better and better. Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you. All right. Let's see here. Next we have Kyrie. Hey, Kyrie. I saw your questions in the chat, but if you want to ask them, go for it and I'll be able to answer your questions now.
How you doing? I don't really have to ask those questions because you answered it in the segment today. So I don't
Oh,
I
awesome.
don't have to
Okay.
know.
Yes. Okay, awesome. Awesome.
Well, I wanted to ask this here question. You were just
Yes,
talking
sir.
about my postal information.
Yes.
So by you giving your real address and name to iPostal, can somebody track you through iPostal to your trust, collaborate y'all two together?
Yeah, so iPostal doesn't sell your information to any third party. So that information is going to be held internal with that company. And unfortunately, it is required because of the US Postal Service, because there's no way for them to be able to receive mail on behalf of the trust. So that's why it's required for them to, find out who you are and that they are authorized to actually do that because stealing mail is illegal and they could go through penalties and jail time, so that's why that form is required.
Okay. So Miss Titan was asking you about the S Corp information, right? I understand you can't you has be labeled as a S Corp, but can you still file your taxes as a S Corp?
No,
You
you
can't?
can't be associated with an S corp. No. So
Oh,
an S corp cannot be owned by a trust.
but
So
you
that's
know,
also, go ahead.
I'm saying like, you as an LLC, even though you're not labeled as an S Corp, you can file your taxes as a S Corp, as a
Yeah.
LLC.
Yeah, which means that you have to operate that LLC as an S corp. If you designate to be taxed as an S corp through the IRS, you have to operate that LLC as an S corp. And so it is going to be labeled as an S corp.
Okay. As in a family trust, I was hearing you say that your holding company should create a 508 after it accumulates a certain amount of money. But should my family trust own a 508 also, or do I just need that one?
Yeah, so both trusts can actually donate to the same 508. So when you see us do it tomorrow, it's going to be the same one.
Okay. So one more question.
Yes, sir.
If I have a registered agent and an
Yes, sir.
address, and I'm in New Orleans, but I have a registered agent and I'm utilizing an address for my entity in Baton Rouge. Can I do that? Even though that's not my home city?
If you have a registered agent. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I mean, so the trust can have its own address and be in its own city. It doesn't have to be located in the same city or state where the trustee is.
okay. And let me ask you this one more and I'm done. So once I finish and create all of this stuff, I saw there was a section where I could file my stuff away in the app, right? So when I file it to that app, do y'all look at it to see the structure of it? Or how can I have someone to go over it with me or make sure everything is correct?
Yeah, so you can just send it to me and Ivy, and we will be able to double check all of your documents. So all of your quit claim deeds, all of your trust documents, your meeting minutes, everything.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That was the last of it. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Next we have Courtney. Hi, Courtney.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, fantastic.
Good. I'm excited to be part of the program. Thank you.
Yay, we're excited to have you.
So I have a number of questions. Just stop me whenever like you need to get to somebody else.
No, go
Um,
for it.
they
Let me
they
know.
should be pretty quick, straightforward ones though.
Okay, great.
Okay, so number one is so for my business trust, I'm wanting to do it for a rental property that I own currently.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if it's best to like make it, I thought about making the name like the address of the property, but I also wondered if it would be better to make it a little more vague in case I get other properties, or is it ideal to have each property have their own trust?
Yeah, so it's ideal to have each property have its own trust just in case someone attempts to make claims against that particular asset or that particular trust. So that is a good strategy to have the address be the actual name of the trust. Having it vague, you would only want to do that if you're going to put multiple houses or properties in that trust. So go vague if it's going to be multiple, and if it's not, then go specific and put the address.
Okay. Yeah, that's the only one I currently have. So, but I wondered like if I did get another property, it would be easier to just put it into that same trust. But is there
Correct.
like a reason I wouldn't want to do that?
Liability purposes. So you have to understand that out here in society, real estate is actually considered a very high liability business. So especially if you have tenants. So do you have tenants? Are you doing Airbnb? What are you actually doing with the property?
Yeah, I've got tenants. Yeah, this is their second year being in it. They seem like they'll be there for a while.
Yeah. So now you have to always think about what if my tenant wants to sue me?
Right.
Right. You never know. They could slip and fall, or a family could slip and fall. You never know, right? Like we have had many instances where our trustees are like going through that. Like one of our trustees recently, he has a rental property. The tenant stopped paying, so he went through the eviction process, and then the tenant now is making claims that her son fell inside the property. So
Mm,
you always have to have that in your forefront and think, what if this tenant tries to sue me and I have four properties in this one trust?
got you. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and then I've watched some of your videos before, and when talking about the state in which to make the trust address,
Yeah.
I thought I had seen you mention there's like certain states that have better trust laws you might want to make the address in. Is that
Yeah,
correct, or it
that
doesn't
is.
really matter?
No, that is correct. So the trust is non-statutory, which means you can choose any state and you can choose any U.S. territory. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that in the event that your trust gets sued, whatever state that you chose as the domicile is where that lawsuit will be carried out. So there are certain states that have more favorable laws. One of them is Wyoming. So a lot of people choose Wyoming. Other states are South Dakota, Delaware, and Nevada. So you might want to do a little bit further research just to see if that is the state that you want to choose.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
then on the expiration of the trust, like the duration, I understand with like a family trust why you would want it to be 100 plus years because it's for future generations. But with the business trust, since I don't have anyone else that's like a business partner, I don't know if my um, heirs or my children, if I have children, would want to take that business over. So I'm wondering if it wouldn't be better to have a shorter term on the business one versus a longer one.
That is a really great question. So, two things. The first thing is for you specifically, you're putting real estate. That real estate is going to outlive you, it's going to outlive your children. That land is always going to be there. Maybe the actual building might not, but that land is always going to be there. Okay. And so you always want that real estate to be owned by a trust. Okay. That is how it's going to prevent probate. And that's how it's going to always be protected by being owned by a trust. Okay. So for your particular case, because you're dealing in real estate, you want you want the life and duration to be as long as possible. For other businesses, maybe they might shut down the business, so we don't know. Now, what you need to consider is that when it comes to renewing the trust, right, at the time that it is due to expire, you can only renew it for a maximum of the original term. Meaning that if you choose today that the original term is 30 years, then that means that every time that you go to renew it, you can only renew it for a maximum of 30 years. And so sometimes that might get exhausting because now in 100-year term, you've already had 2 or 3 renewals, right? Versus the other person who's only have one renewal in a 100-year term. So you can terminate whenever you want, right? So you can terminate at 40 years, 50 or 60. But when it comes to that renewal, sometimes you want to choose the longest term possible so that you can have a minimum number of renewals.
I see. Okay, because it takes less management basically, but I can dissolve it at any time and that asset would just be transferred to the family trust.
Absolutely.
Okay. So one thing that I think about, just because I have like dementia and Alzheimer's that run in my family, so I'm always thinking about like if that were to happen to me, um, if I didn't realize that that was happening before I could dissolve it, like how would that work? Would the family trust not receive those assets until the end of that duration of the trust, or how would that work?
Okay, so 2 things when it comes to your question. So the first thing is once that trust is terminated, the beneficiary, which is the family trust, has to receive that asset. The second thing is that you have a succession plan. So in the event that you have Alzheimer or dementia, right, you are in a position to where you cannot operate the trust. And so if that's the case, then your successor has to take over for you. So
Right.
that person that you listed as your successor, now they're going to take over and they're going to continue to manage the trust. And so they're going to be responsible for disposing of that property. So that means that they can either renew the trust and continue for the trust to own that real estate, or they terminate the trust and then that trust goes to the family trust. That
Got you.
property to the family trust.
Got you. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
it's very, very, very important that everybody appoint a successor because tomorrow is not promised. Anything can happen, and you want to ensure that your trust can continue to operate because it is designed to outlive you.
Right. Yes. Okay. Okay, so with that in mind, like I know you said beneficiaries cannot contribute to the trust. So like say if we did a family trust and it was 100-year term, the beneficiaries would not be able to add to that trust. So if they wanted to protect their assets, you would start a new trust?
Okay, that's a really good question. So, 2 things, right? So the first one is beneficiaries can add to the trust, but it's highly unlikely. So the trust is not designed to have their beneficiaries transfer their assets into the trust because there's other beneficiaries, right? So if I'm a beneficiary, most likely I'm not going to put my house into the trust because there's 4 other beneficiaries there. Okay.
Right.
So in that case, what you would do is you would create a subtrust. The subtrust is a specific trust for that one individual beneficiary, and then they would place their own property into their own trust, which is a
Hmm.
subtrust of the family trust.
Okay. And they would create the subtrust, like structure it almost just like they have their own trust.
Identical. Identical.
Okay. Okay. But if they pass, then does that subtrust go into the main family trust, or how are they connected?
Yeah, so you can make their subtrust the new beneficiary of the overall family trust.
I see. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're so
Okay.
welcome.
Yeah, I'm gonna let a few other people get their questions in. I've got a few more, but I'm sure we'll get to it over the week.
Absolutely. So we are here all week, Monday through Friday. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff dealing with the family trust. So you could definitely hold those questions until we're done with that indenture. Wednesday, we're going to talk about the nonprofit tax exempt trust. Thursday, we're going to be talking about banking and money and credit and funding and money, all of that stuff. And then Friday, we're going to be talking about all things dealing with asset and taxes. So if you have any questions regarding any of those things that we are going to be talking about for the rest of the week, then hold those questions for the rest of the week and for our educators. So next we have thank you, Courtney, for those wonderful questions. Next we have Miss Diana. Hi, Miss Diana.
Hello, how's it going, Christina? Good
Wonderful. You look so beautiful.
to
Yeah, thank
you.
you. Thank you.
So, my questions are, okay, can you have two first trustees?
No.
Okay.
So, yeah, one first trustee and the other person is going to be a second trustee.
What do you do with husband and wife? Who
Yep.
decides
Right,
first?
exactly. You guys decide who's first, who's second.
Okay. And then as the other trustees, can you put the children and then the grandchildren as beneficiaries? Or do you think,
Yeah.
like,
Okay, so are you asking if you can put the children as trustees?
yeah,
You can if you would like to. So you have to decide right now today if you want your children to have power and control or not. If you don't want them to have power and control, then you have to put them as beneficiaries. And then ultimately, their children are going to be like successor trustees. So they're going to be future beneficiaries. If you would like, a lot of other people, they actually will list their children and grandchildren because you have 100 trust certificate units. So if you want to add the grandchildren now for them to benefit today, you can. If not, then they're going to benefit once their parent transitions and those units go to them.
okay. And suppose you want to give a little portion to if they're married, to the spouse. I know it said no, no, not to the married person. So can we add, like, is there a clause or something you could put in that if they stay married, they get a portion, or just leave it to the child, and if they're married, they're going to share it anyway? Is that what you?
Yeah, yeah, that's a sticky situation. So I would definitely tell you if, like, you can list whoever you want as a beneficiary. If you want to list the marriage partner as one, then you can. And the only thing you will have to do is just switch around the language in the trust to not restrict the marriage partner from holding units.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. And now when you say where it said $1, should you
Yes.
put the value of it, the truer value, or better to have less than more? Like on the,
That's a really good question. So, when we say the dollar, we really mean the dollar. So, if you want it to be $10, $100, or $1,000, then you have to change the amount. But that is
okay.
that. So that $1 is the grantor handing that $1 to the trustee. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
what. So that's
That's
that
the only,
exchange. Yeah,
okay.
so the $1 is not equivalent to the net worth of the trust, right? It's not equivalent to how much assets you're placing into the trust. The $1 is just the first thing that you're putting inside of the trust.
Okay. And then the net worth, is there a place where we had to put net worth or no?
So
This,
it's not in the actual indenture. You should have received a resource, and that resource is the asset inventory list. And that's where you're going to place all of the assets, and then you'll determine what the net worth is.
And then do we put it anywhere on the contract? Or we
It's
just
not
keep?
gonna go,
Okay.
it's not going to go inside of the contract, but it's going to be a part of your trust documents. So you're gonna add that asset inventory list. It is going to be a living document. It's a worksheet, and you're going to be constantly updating it, as well as the Schedule B when you add assets or remove assets from the trust.
And can the family trust be longer than 100 years? Or
So,
like it has,
yeah, so
if I
so
want to create a legacy that goes on and on?
Yeah, so the trust needs to have a life and duration. You do have to choose what it is. If you want it to be longer than 100 years, you can. Typically we don't do that, but you can, but just know that it's not indefinite. So you do have to choose a term. So a lot of people think, oh, well, I want it to go for 10 generations, so I'm going to put 10,000 years. Like that's not best practice. And then you can't put forever and indefinite, because that's not ideal either. So it is a living entity. You want to put something that's realistic. So for example, yourself, Miss Diana, can you live for 100 years?
Possibly.
Yes, there are people on this earth that are 102, 108, 110. So can you live for 100 years?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So you have to put something realistic.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. I think that's it for now. I mean,
Okay.
I have a lot more questions, but I'll let others ask. And it's nice when people ask because I think everybody learns from it. So
Yeah,
thanks.
I agree. That's why I love this environment that we're cultivating, because like we're learning from questions that you're asking, from questions that Courtney asked, from questions that Titan asked. So I'm so excited. And we're here all week. So if you have any other questions, just have a list ready to go, because we're having Q&A every single day.
I won't be here tomorrow and Wednesday, but I'll watch the replays, but I'll be back
Okay.
Thursday.
Okay,
All
well,
right?
we're gonna miss you, but we're excited to see you Thursday. And Thursday is an awesome day. You're gonna get to meet our educators Thursday and Friday, so it's gonna be awesome.
Great. Thank
All right,
you.
thank you, Miss Diana. All right, next we have private equity.
Hi.
Hi,
Um, oh, this is Tosh. I
hi,
wanted
Todd.
to, hi,
I'm
I
so
wanted,
glad you made it.
me too, thank
Yeah,
you. I was
yeah,
a
yeah.
little tardy, but um,
Yeah.
I wanted to know if an EIN is necessary for the trust.
That's a great question. EIN is not required for the trust. It's optional. And the only reason why we opt for obtaining an EIN is to open up a bank account, because it's very hard to get a bank account for the trust without an EIN. So almost every single bank will ask you for the EIN number of the entity. And so it's going to be more challenging for you, and you might not be successful in opening up a bank account. And it is in the best interest of the trust for you to have a separate bank account for that trust. That's going to put you in a position to where you're not commingling funds. Because if you're doing any type of activity for that trust, where you're going to put the money. So you want to have a bank account specifically for that trust.
So they don't, do they all need to have
If you're going to be operating them, and if you're going to open up a bank account for them, then I would tell
yes,
you yes. But once again, it's not required. So you might not need to obtain it now. You might obtain it, the day before you need to actually use it or open up an account. So it's on a case by case basis, and it depends on how you operate it.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Tosh. Thank you. And next we have Kyrie, and then I'm looking inside of the chat. Let's see here. Kim has a couple questions. Um, So let's see. Can the trustee also be a secretary or treasurer or manager? No. So the trustee is only the trustee, and you have to appoint a separate individual to serve as the secretary or the treasurer or the manager. But now the trustee will have all those tasks. For example, if you don't have a secretary, then guess who's doing all the secretarial tasks? The trustee. Okay. Must the true value of the assets be declared? So you can document the estimated value of all the assets. So it's not going to be inside of the indenture, but it will be on a separate report. And Kyrie, do you have a question? You're still on mute.
Okay, yeah. Yes, I do. Hello
Yes,
again. This
hey.
this one here is because of something that Miss Courtney Hurst asked.
Okay,
So
yes, sir.
my father always told me to have my holding company own all my LLCs. And then, because she was asking you the question about should the different homes she buy have different holding trusts. But my father always was telling me, and I want to see which is better, that I should always create a different LLC before it get to the holding trust because that gives you another extra layer of protection in case of a lawsuit. So if they sue my LLC, then it won't make it to my holding trust. So try to create more individual LLCs and let the holding company own all the different LLCs. What do you think?
Okay, so you can have multiple LLCs in one business trust. When you're thinking about placing LLCs into a business trust, you do want to separate it between low liability businesses and high liability businesses. The next thing is when it comes to real estate, a strategy that a lot of real estate investors use is they have the property be owned by the trust, by the business trust, and then they have the LLC be the manager of the trust, of the property, so that in the event that something happens to the property, they will go after the LLC instead of the business trust. So if you want that extra layer of protection, then you need to assign your LLC as the manager of that property so that all of the documentation and everything between the tenant and your organization has the LLC in the forefront.
Okay, I got you. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. So we have Ms. Debbie who says LLCs can terminate if protocol is not followed. Therefore, realizing the best to create a trust for each LLC, then put the LLC into the trust. So that's up to you if you want to create a individual trust per LLC. So I will tell you it depends on the operation. So once again, if you have a high liability LLC, you do want to separate that high liability LLC from your other LLCs. Okay. So for example, if you're just doing consulting, right, and no one is doing a slip and a fall and a crash and all this other stuff, right, it's something that's very minimal and safe, then you're not going to put that consulting business in the same business that you would have a trucking company or a medical company or a real estate company where there's so much that can happen, right? A car crash, a slip and fall, patient malpractice, all this stuff, okay? So once again, it depends on the nature of the business. The next question is, can a co-trustee become the successor trustee? So the answer is no. So the co-trustee can become the first trustee, but then who's going to take over the co-trustee? There has to be a successor in place to be able to take over for the co-trustee in the event that the co-trustee becomes incapacitated, expires, or decides to resign. Next is when the trust is establishing a checking account is the trust opening up the account. So we're not going to be talking about banking procedures and operations on this call. So I pray and hope, Kim, that you're able to attend on Thursday, because that is where we're going to be talking about checking accounts and banks and moving money around and things of that nature. Is the $1 literally just making the trust a living entity? So yeah, it's actually a part of the execution of the trust.
2 miles ahead, turn left.
When the trust is established, it is going to require an initial consideration, and so there has to be that exchange between the grantor and the first trustee in order for the trust to be fully established. Next we have Miss Betty. Hey, Miss Betty.
I have one more question. Okay, I am going to be the only trustee initially, but my successor will be a trustee and a co-trustee. Is that going to be an issue? Yeah, I wanted someone like my daughter to be a trustee, a co-trustee with my husband.
Yeah, okay. So both of them can be co-trustees, but you're gonna have to list someone else as the successor. So because in the event that something happens to your co-trustees, someone needs to take over.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
So your successor trustee needs to be different from your co-trustee.
Okay.
All right, the next question that I see is, I see where others are teaching about establishing a living trust to inherit everything in the business, in the family. So what are your thoughts? If that is what you want to do, you can do that. So there is no one size fits all with this. Okay. So for example, my structure is very different from Miss Betty's structure. It's very different from Miss Diana's structure. It's very different from Kyrie's structure. Why? Because we have different things going on. We're running different businesses. We have different families. We have different assets. So there is no one, two structures that are the same. Okay, so if you would like to implement a living trust, which I would tell you, a lot of people already have living trusts that are already in existence. So if you already have one in existence and you want to incorporate it within your structure, then you can do that. And then the last question I see, oh no, there's two questions. If we're currently having an LLC taxed as an S corp, I understand that we cannot, that it can be owned by a holding company or a trust. So what's the best alternative solution? That's a great question. So the S corp is going to have to be outside of your structure. So it has to be like its own island. So that's one way. So your S corp is going to remain intact and you're going to continue to operate it. And that's a decision that you have to make if you want to continue to operate an entity in your own personal name. Some people decide that it's more advantageous for them to not be liable for the business, and so they decide to either convert that S corp back into an LLC, um, which is one way that you can do, or dissolve the S corp. So it's a decision that you have to make, and you should make it based on the nature of your business, right? So if you have a disregarded entity where you're not really doing anything for it, then maybe you want to dissolve it. I personally don't tell people to dissolve their entities. You will definitely like want to use it for like funding purposes at the least. But once again, that is a decision that you have to make. It is more easier for people to just change the designation back to an LLC from an S corp. And then the last question that I see here is, what is the best route to create an LLC, either trust so it won't be public records? What is the best way to create an LLC so it won't be a public records? An LLC is always a part of the public records. There's no way for an LLC to not be a part of the public records because an LLC is a statutory entity. You have to go to the Secretary of State in order to establish it. And the Secretary of State reports to the public records. Everything is visible online. So there's no way for the LLC to not be a part of the public records. Now, what you will want to do is, if you don't have an LLC already, it looks like you want to create one. That's wonderful because you're going to be doing it the right way. Where at the very beginning, you are going to create this LLC and it's going to be established by the business trust. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to create the business trust. After you create the business trust is then going to create the LLC. So when you're going through the Secretary of State to apply for and do the articles of organization for the LLC, when you go to list who the manager or the authorized member is, you're going to list the trust so that your name never appears on the public records. Can an S corp be converted to a corp? It depends. So if it's an LLC, no. If it's a corporation, then you can choose if it's S or C. So is it a corporation or is it an LLC? So an
Well, mine
LLC,
is S corporation. Mine is the S corporation right now. It's an S corp, and
but is it a LLC or is it a corporation?
it is a S corporation.
So it's a
That's what my,
corporation.
yeah, it's a
It's a
corporation.
corporation. It's not an LLC.
No, it's not an LLC, but it's an S corporation. But I was wondering if I converted it to a just a
C
regular
corp.
corporation.
C corp.
Yes. Will I be a C corp? Yeah. Will I be able to put the
Yes.
C into a trust? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because that's what that's how I've been operating ever since I've been in business since 2007. So I didn't realize that an LLC would be more friendlier, more workable.
Yes. Absolutely. That was a wonderful question, Miss Betty.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
That's all.
You're welcome. All right. Next, we have Miss Diana.
I just wanted to ask, can you use the address of an LLC property? So if I have an address LLC, then I'm just using as a property LLC to do the trust in.
So I would tell you, yes, you can use an LLC address for your trust. I would definitely use it for the business trust that is most likely going to be associated with the LLC. So as long as you personally haven't used this address, then you're good to go. Okay.
Okay, good.
All right. Let's see here. So Kyrie asks, where can I find the money/finance video from the other day? So are you referring to the masterclass, Kyrie? Because I can go ahead and put the replay link. That was a wonderful masterclass that we had a couple days ago with one of our educators, Giovanni West. Is that what you're referring to? Yes. Okay. So if you guys missed our masterclass that we had last Tuesday, let me put that replay link in the chat so that you guys are able to watch it. So give me one moment. And then I have another question here. One second. Okay. Okay, I'm putting it in the chat right now. Hold on one second. Um, okay. And let's see here. Where can I send my trust documents for review? You can email it to us. That's the only way that we're able to receive it. So you can email it to both of us. So I'm going to put Ivy's email and my email. And we'll be able to assist with review. All right, wonderful. So that is going to conclude Day one of the Wealthy Trustee Workshop. Once again, I'm super excited that you guys are here, that you stayed for the entire workshop. Q&A session was awesome. You guys asked so many wonderful questions. I do have homework for you guys, so please go ahead and get into the Facebook community. I know that a couple of you guys have requested over the weekend, and get into our Telegram chat. So you should have received a text message or the link for the Telegram chat inside of the email and the onboarding form. So what you want to do is get into both the Facebook and the Telegram chat so that you can introduce yourself, right? So we have a community of over 1,300 trustees and we want to get to know you. So please go ahead and introduce yourself. Let us know like your name and where are you based and what your business is and the reason why you've decided to create this legacy. So once again, we want to get familiar with who you are because we are a tight-knit community. So with that being said, we're going to meet here tomorrow on Zoom, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You are going to receive an email with the resources and templates that you're going to need 1 hour before the Zoom, and it's going to have the Zoom link as well as everything else. So I will see you here tomorrow on Zoom. You guys have a blessed and highly favored day. And that's it. So you guys have a wonderful day. Bye,
Thank you for
everyone.
this.
You're welcome. Thank you, Miss Betty. Bye, everyone. You guys have a blessed day.
You too.
You
Thank
too.
you.